There are chapters 27 through 33 that I want to finish before June, then I'll start vector calculus and finally differential equations for real. I'm hoping to finish those at least in November so that I can grind IB past papers to prepare for the admission exam. My goal is to get through Introduction to Flight before university, but at this rate, it might not be the only aerospace book that I'll read before I get there, depending on how quickly I finish differential equations and calculus 3, of course. Right now, I buckled up and I'm going hard, studying like I'd never studied before. I finished 6 whole chapters in a single month of one of the most challenging topics so far. The feeling of accomplishment this gives me is beyond my comprehension, and this is just the beginning. Chapter 21 told me what Coulomb's law is, meaning the electrostatic force and its close relation to gravitational force. I've learned what charge even is, its quantization and conservation, and how it's transferred across conductors. Particularly interesting was induced charge, how the conduction electrons can be reorganized by an outside object without it making contact. Chapter 22 taught me about electric fields and their relationships to the electrostatic forces. A lot of the chapter was about electric fields due to three-dimensional extended objects, which I did not go deep into as I suspect I won't need to be extremely proficient with every single shape. But knowing that it's derived from taking an electric field at a point due to an element of an object and then integrating it across the entire surface was not only interesting but also most likely sufficient. Chapter 23 was Gauss's law, which is nothing but a simple relationship of flux to charge enclosed by a Gaussian surface. What was the actual core of the chapter was flux itself. The visualization of flux was very clear and I really enjoyed this chapter in particular. Sadly, high school doesn't even touch it, and to my knowledge the university does, but rather shortly. I was mega curious, however, what flux was ever since I heard from the term in the cartoon Galactic Football, so I'm happy to have satisfied that curiosity. Chapter 24 was super hefty, as that was the chapter on electric potential. This has been by far the most unintuitive chapter out of the entire bunch, because the notion of voltage, although I know maybe 8 different formulae to calculate it, still isn't clear as day. My understanding of it at this point is that it isn't the voltage that should be considered when thinking about the movement of charge, but the electric field and the work it does in that charge. Voltage just happens to be the path integral of the electric field. Chapter 25 was the first chapter where I saw a circuit diagram, which I'd also been looking forward to forever. Capacitors as conceptual entities are fairly straightforward, but their application is not so much, perhaps because the book didn't really go further into capacitors than explaining the physics behind them. I guess that's something that I will learn further in circuits. Chapter 26 is where I was blown away in every single module. Understanding the microscopic domain of current traveling through different objects and how the energy transfers happen was completely fascinating, and I even said that I gotta be careful not to become an electrical engineering convert because that was just so cool and interesting. So, just completely blew my mind. The fact that we can explain and calculate so many different phenomena using only 4 variables is insane, and entering the microscopic plane to examine the movement of the conduction electrons and how they behave as they go through objects is just entrancing to me. To be able to comprehend every single thing as I progressed through these 6 chapters felt really rewarding, especially because I found answers to questions that I've had my entire life. So it wasn't just about going through the material, it was really, curiosity for the first time, actually. I've reorganized my desk a little bit, and the space is now really cozy. When I come home from the gym, I make myself some coffee, turn on my oil diffuser, and spend a few minutes running in Catalyst before I dive into the module of the day. The game is one wonderful work of art, and pairing it with studying makes me feel like I'm a part of its world, and as if I were doing my work on the actual rooftops of the City of Glass. You know how when you've been playing a game for a long time, you close your eyes and you see the game? Whenever I'm solving a practice problem and I stop to think, the images from the game appear as background to whatever piece of engineering my brain is chewing on at that particular moment. It makes it an experience which I lack the words to describe. Mirror's Edge has been a huge influence on my life, and this influence's current shape is nothing short of beautiful. I'm able to further amplify this entire state with the scent of a particular blend of essential oils for a serene learning session. I am continuously failing to express enough gratitude for how much joy this entire process brings during my prayer and meditation.